you find mistakes in it, you know, what I say, because
But from your perspective,
my
of
own
course.
perspective, yeah. What would I want them to know about Duntara?
Yeah. What do you want the future generation to know?
Well, I guess I want them to know that, yes, it was a happy place to grow up in as a young boy, and and where the people came from. It was my understanding that they were all Irish, Irish Catholic. You have to make that distinction. And at the very beginning, they were Gaelic speaking. Because the first priests that came to, or the first few priests, the first 7 priests that came to Keenscove, that was the parish, the parish was in Keenscove. And we all
St.
went
Peter's
to there.
and Paul.
Yeah, and they had to be Gaelic speaking as well as English speaking. So I think they should know that they came from Ireland, as far as I know. You had some people there, such as the Skeffingtons, who no doubt were not Catholics, but when they were in Duntara they were all Catholics. But they were certainly English.
My father mentioned the Skeffingtons once, and he said somehow they married into the Lane family, and then he said, but they were Protestant.
Yeah, they became Catholics because nobody in Duntara were Protestant.
Yeah.
The Skeffingtons, there's only one family I found. I never found them marrying into the Lanes, but that doesn't mean to say they didn't marry into the Lanes. And when that family moved or whatever happened, that was the end of the Skeffingtons, like so many other families in Duntara.
But the Hardy stayed, and the Devereux stayed.
And there was only one Devereux that came, well, there might have been 2. There was an Elizabeth there at the same time. But there was only one male Devereux, Henry, that came there. And he stayed, he married. I'm not sure who he married. Did he marry an Aylward or Tobin? And but there were a lot of families that are gone. Like if I look across from the harbour, from where that house is, that's called
Two-room gallery.
two-room gallery.
Stephen Elwood's house.
Stephen Elwood's house. That was Stephen Elwood's house. Yeah. I can name the families who lived over there, beginning with the Tobins. Tobins were the early families of Duntara. Tobins were. And they were the late families too. They came in the 1860s. The last family to come into Duntara were the Simon Tobin in 1860. But they were the early, when the church records started in 1815, Tobins were on the records. So if I look across the harbour, you have the Tobins, you have the Whalens, gone. You have the Carrolls, gone. You have the Sullivans, gone. You have the Gashes, gone. You have the Carews, or Careys as they were called then, gone. It's just over there.
So who's living there right now, do you know?
Nobody living over there. Bonnie Hobbs lives in Morris Carey's house, and further up in the lane, in what used to be Joe Maloney's house, there's a fellow Fleming living there. Now the Maloneys were not native of Duntara. They came into Duntara when a Gash married a Maloney in Sweet Bay, a Maloney they used to be called, married a Gash in Sweet Bay, and she died after a number of children, and one of them was sent back with his grandparents. So that family got there. I don't know really what I would want them to remember about Duntara.
Well, they used holy water, right?
They were religious. They were religious, and one of the things they used was holy water. I mean, if you had a cold or something like that, there was no aspirin even. There was nothing to cure pain. They used holy water, and what other religious symbols? They believed in such things as scapulars too.
What's a scapular?
A scapular is a, well, I'm only really reiterating, it's a relic.
Yeah.
Does that give some meaning to it being a relic?
Is a relic, like an old object?
Yeah.
Like they would say a piece of the cross,
Yeah.
or a hair from a saint, or something like that.
And what would they do with these things?
It would usually be a piece of cloth, something maybe about this size, and within that would be, they thought, they probably got that from the priest or something like that, you know. There could be a cure in that, so they'd use that. If you had bronchitis or something like that, they put it on your chest.
Okay. And they got it from the priest. The priest would give them these.
The priest would give them that. Usually, every year there would be what they call a mission priest come. Some order would send a priest in to preach fire and brimstone, you know, that kind of a sermon.
Scare them.
And everybody was going to hell, you know. And those are the things that he would give them, stuff like that, you know.
So are there any good ghost stories of pirates in Duntara?
I really can't think of a lot right now. I can think of one that involved my great uncle Patrick. He didn't stay in Duntara. The only Devereux that stayed of the second generation was my grandfather. The rest all left. They went to Belle-Isle, and two of them came to St. John's. And this guy Patrick, besides being a great drunkard, also during the Prohibition in the States, he would be taking part in running rum to
St. Pierre.
from St. Pierre and wherever he could get it. But there's a story told that the boat was being followed by, I suppose it would be the Navy, the British Navy, I don't know, who would enforce the embargo, or maybe the Americans, but they were in British waters, so I think, yeah. Anyhow, they were being followed, so he knew about how to get into Duntara anyhow. So he got the boat into Duntara in the night and drove it up on the beach, painted it another colour, whatever they could paint it, another colour. That's the men in Duntara helped them do that.
Well, they stuck together. That's good.
Helped them to do that. They knew who he was and all that. In fact, he had a son born down there, Bernard, in 1807. But they went back to St. John's again, the whole family. They were a desperate family, and had the boat pushed off before dawn came. So when the boat got out on the sea again, it was a different boat, different coloured boat. So they carried on.
Okay. So they had their strategies. That's good. They're thinking people. I guess. That's good.
The famous place in Newfoundland, of course, was St. Pierre. 'Cause that's where all the rum and liquor was.
Oh.
And that even goes on today.
Now, where's St. Pierre?
That's down off the south coast. That's French. That belongs to France.
But isn't the South Coast, isn't that the Irish loop?
No.
No, I'm talking about in the ocean now. It's off Grand Bank.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're French-speaking people. And that's where Al Capone and all those guys used to get their liquor to bring into the United States.
That's right.
It was coming from Europe into St. Pierre, and they'd come with the boats from the U.S. and pick up their liquor and bring back into the U.S. That's the rum running days. But that's still going on today here in Newfoundland. They have their little scams for avoiding the police and the authorities. Well, one of the tricks is a bag of salt.
And what they would do with the salt?
They put, if they were caught, or police were caught, or whomever, they'd put the rum in a bag of salt and throw it overboard. And the salt would dissolve.
Yeah.
And
And the liquor would come back up. Aren't they clever? Okay,
so these are things, that's the rum runners, the things they use to avoid getting caught.
So what you're saying is people from Dantara are very clever. They see a situation and they can work.
The Hardys were among the most clever of them all, really, coming up with things like that. You know. They were.
Where were they getting their supply of liquor?
I don't think they were. They might have got it. I don't know, but I think in this case the boat was being chased, and he knew about Dantara because he fished there.
Okay, so it wasn't a regular routine.
No, they were just trying to get away from the pursuers, you know, whoever was after them. And when he got in Bonavista Bay, they drove him so far north, I suppose. When he got in Bonavista Bay, well, he said, "We'll go into Broad Cove and paint the boat and take our chances." So
And the odds went with them.
What's that?
The odds went with them. They
Oh
won.
yes, they're supposed to escape. Yeah, they got out.
So did they ever make liquor? I mean, in the Appalachian Mountains, they would make their own liquor. In the
They
United
would make
States.
moonshine.
Yes, they would make moonshine. Did they make moonshine?
Yes, guaranteed.
Oh, they did? Oh, guarantee it. Oh,
Well,
wow.
that's all over
I saw it.
Newfoundland.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So were the Hardys heavy drinkers?
Everybody was. Well, my father wasn't. No, my father didn't drink, but all his brothers drank. All the Hardys drank. Heavy drinkers, heavy fighters.
Rough and tough people, huh?
Yeah.
Hard working.
And hard work. And then when it came to work,
They got the job
they
done.
got the job done. This guy Peter Hardy, who built the boat that Tom told me about. Tom said Aunt Stace Hardy, she was an alewoman. She married his brother John, and she used to come up to visit. And she said she didn't know how Peter Hardy was going to stand it. He was building this boat for Ryan, not for Ryan, for Thomas Devine. Well, I'll tell you a little bit of the beginning. Tom said they can't. There's no one here to build boats anymore, and what they build them out of is nothing anyhow, fiberglasses. He said, "I'll tell you the story about the story that Peter Hardy built." Okay. Peter Hardy was a good man, a good fisherman, and he was probably the quietest of the Hardys, you know. And John was pretty good too, but anyhow, he had 2 bad fishing seasons. Because they used to fish right off the point down there. They didn't come up in the harbour to fish. They had their stages built out into the ocean.
Oh, okay.
So that they would take in the fall of the year and put out into spring. And the fishing grounds are just awful. And he had 2 bad seasons. And he got his supplies from Dan Ryan in King's Gulf, the big merchant. But the second year failed. Dan Ryan said, "No, that's it. No more." Now he had no food for the winter.
What a mean Dan Ryan.
What?
What a mean Dan
Ryan
Ryan.
cut him off.
Cut him out. So he even wasn't thinking about fishing next year. He had to get supplies for next year, but now he had no food to feed his family, a big family. So he goes over to Ned Brown, sure it was, Ned Brown, and he asked Ned Brown if he would give him some. Well, all he wanted was some flour, molasses, salt beef, a few things like that, you know, to keep him. No diapers or anything like that. To get him through the winter. So Ned Brown, as Tom said, Ned Brown knew when he had a good deal. Ned Brown knew Peter Hardy. He said, "Yes, Peter, I'll give you your supplies." But he said, I want you to build me a trap skiff. Now, Ned Brown didn't need a trap skiff because Ned Brown wasn't a fisher, wasn't a collector of fish.
Yeah.
But Ned Brown knew that when that trap skiff was built, he was going to get a good price for it.
See, I told you they're all clever.
So then Peter Hardy started to build that boat down on Hardy's Point, down there, or it wasn't Hardy's Point, but I forget now. But he started to build a boat, but at that time, they didn't put a canopy over the boats or anything like that. They built the boat out in the elements. If it was snowing or whatever it was, they were out there working. They didn't put... I never understood that. I saw them build boats when I was growing up in the 40s. But they didn't build anything over, no protection for themselves. And Aunt Stace, who's married to his brother, said she didn't know how he was going to get through the winter. He works all day at the boat, and then he goes up on the head that's further up where the wood is and cuts some wood for the next day. Didn't know how he was going to do it. But he did it. But he died of pneumonia, just the same.
Is, when you say Aunt Stace, is that short for Anastasia?
Anastasia. Yeah. Stace.
You'll see it Auntie too, in some cases.
Yeah.
So who is your favorite character of all people in Broad Cove or Dentara?
Well, the favorite character was Tom Aylward,
Yeah.
because of his stories he could tell me about when he was on the mainland. I mean, you'd never believe. You'd never believe. I mean, boy, he was when he was on the lake boat. Say they'd leave Baie-Comeau with a load of ore, 7 to 10 days to get to Detroit. And then he said, as soon as they got ashore, they were gone for the clubs. And I said, 6 of them had to go together. So it wasn't bad going there, but getting back in the night,
It's hard.
because the taxis wouldn't take you to the dock. You had to walk.
And they wouldn't take you to the dock because
It was too rough an area.
it's just too rough in an area.
Even the clubs where they were in was rough, but there were 6 of them.
Yeah. Is that where the Hardys learned to fight because they had?
Well, no, the Hardys wasn't among this group.
Okay. Oh, so they're all tough fighters.
Well, this was Tom, and there was no one else from Dontara with
Okay.
Tom when he was with this group. No.
Yeah.
But I'd say Tom could take care of himself too. He was a big man, and
So what was the average lifespan in Dentara?
oh my gosh. I would just say it was the same all over, Walter.
Yeah.
The 60s, most of them were gone.
I've
60 years.
seen a lot of deaths in the death records of old age.
Of old age.
65 years old. Died of old age.
Yeah, that's pretty young to be old.
But that's everywhere. You'll find that in the U.S. as well. And, it wasn't until the 1900s that health became a big issue all over, and the lifespan then started to increase. Like mortality, I mean, women were dying. You've got ancestors that have been married 3 times. The man has been married 3 times. It's because of the mortality.
And sometimes the women had to find another man because it was the only way for her to survive.
Yeah.
So Patrick, where am I at? So, John Ryan married Eleanor Dixon, and they had one child, Catherine Ryan. Now, when John died, Catherine was only a year old, and as you found out, she didn't remarry Elaine for 11 years. How did she support herself with one child in Dentara? When I saw Dentara, I said, what did that woman do? to feed her child?
Family.
You think her family took care of her?
Yep.
They would stick together? Is that how they were?
Yeah, some would haul her a load of wood or something like that for the fire.
But 11 years of hauling wood for her? That's...
Not only her relatives, but people who weren't her relatives would do that.
So they were very generous, you would
Oh
say.
yes, they would. Yes.
They would take care of each
They
other.
would take care of it. That's all. That's the only way you survive from hauling up a boat. If you haul up a boat, you had to depend on all the men of the harbour
Oh, did you?
to helping a widow or a widower, you know, until they finally worked out something themselves. Oh yes, there was no animosity that way. No.
So, how has it changed? Let's say, how do you think it's changed from 1855 to 1955?
Well, one thing, there's no people there now. That's the big change. The people are left. There's only 17 there this winter, I think.
17 people. Oh
I
my
think
goodness.
so. That were permanent residents.
Yeah. Are they older people?
They're in their 40s.
Okay,
Yeah.
well that's pretty young.
And some of those, there's only one in one person in a house. No,
But they wouldn't be working there, would they, Gerald?
No,
They're working somewhere else. They're just living
They're
there.
just living there. They're coming home to live. Yeah.
So how big would the families be? How many people would live in one household in Dantara?
Now,
No, back then.
oh, back then, I mean,
However big the family was.
even after I left Dantara in the 60s, down on Wally's Point, there was the Hartys, Os Harty, who had about 10 children. There was Jack Donovan, who had another 10 children. A little further up, there was Pat Maloney, who had another 10 children. There was a busload of children that came out of Dantara in the 60s.
So is that why you think you were so happy there? Because there were so many kids to play with and get into trouble with?
I don't know what the happiness was. I guess I wasn't sick.
Yeah.
I had food and clothing
And bikes?
and bikes, and I had an accordion.
Was there a lot of music there? Did they have music teachers?
Oh, there was a lot of music there, but there were no music teachers. How I learned to play, I'll tell you that. This
Okay.
way. I had a cousin who was a Harty. Well, we used to call him a Harty, but we didn't know the difference. He wasn't a Harty. He was my uncle's, Richard Aylward's child, and they weren't married. And he was living with his mother. So he went by the name. When we were going to school, he was called Harty. But we didn't know the difference. But he wasn't a Harty. He was an Aylward. He was a real good player, and the Hartys were good players.
Good music players?
Oh, good accordion players, yeah.
Oh, accordion.
Yeah,
Okay.
good accordion players, yeah. There was in his uncle. He had two uncles that went to Boston. Went to New York. Jack and Ronald. They were good. And anyhow, how we learned how to play was like this. Every year there'd be a couple of times, they used to call it, in the school. In the New Year there'd be a New Year, and there'd be a garden party in the summer. And Jack and Ronald Harty, the good players, were gone by that time to the States, but us was still there, and but us wasn't dependable, say. So they wouldn't get us to play unless they couldn't get anyone else. Usually they'd get Jerry Barker from Open Hall or someone to play.
When you say Os, you mean Austin?
Austin Harty.
Austin.
Yeah. This guy Austin you're talked about now, that would be his son.
Okay.
But this guy was a good player. So my cousin and myself would go. We were only small then, 10 or 12. Both had accordions because my cousin's mother could play too, and her grandmother, who's a Tobin, could play.
Who taught them?
Yeah.
The generations, they would teach your own children how to play?
You just listen to them. They wouldn't teach you anything.
Well, you must have been very talented then, because that's
Well,
hard.
this is how it would happen. We'd go over there, and Os would be there playing the accordion, and I'd be on one side of him, and Nish would be on the other side. And he moved away to the States, and he won't come back anymore. He's getting too old now, he told me. But we'd listen to us play, and us do the first dance. Now, the first part of the square dance, you had the young people, the old people would be there, and they needed good music. So us would play for that, we'd play on, and then there'd be a break, that dance would be over. So then when the second group started, maybe 10:30 or somewhere around there, 11 o'clock, some of the old fellas starting to go home now, see? And the younger crowd are coming in. So us would keep playing again, but somewhere through there, and we'd be listening to him, see? Somewhere through there, he'd say, Gerald, I got to take a break. He had to get a drink. That's what he had to do. Well, get a drink. So he'd pass us the accordion, and we'd do the best that we could. Now, in the meantime, we had been practicing at home. See, this wasn't something new. We had been practicing at home, but we were small, and trying to keep the thing going was. But he wouldn't be gone very long when he'd be back again. So he'd take it away from us again, carry on. Well, that carried on, and then there'd be another break. Finally, 12 o'clock came. Now you were getting the young fellas in, and they didn't care as long as there was a noise now being made. We knew what was going to happen next, eh? Us would start it off, here boys, take her. He was gone.
Oh.
And then however long they wanted to dance, we had to supply the music the best way we could. And then the next day, we'd go and try to remember what us had been playing and try to improve upon that.
I can remember reading in P.K. Divine books a guy named Stephen Ryan, who I've never figured out what his genealogy is, but it talks about him playing an accordion.
Yes.
So even back then, he was born in 1833, so I guess that goes way back. And where would you buy your accordions?
Eaton's catalog.
Eaton's, okay.
Was that like the Sears catalog?
Same
Same
thing.
thing. These were the two companies in Newfoundland, Sears
That's
and
where the bike came from.
Oh, is that where the white came from?
The Sears had origins in the U.S. Eaton's were out of Ontario.
I wore out one 4-button stop accordion. That's the one I had first. I wore that one out. And I wore out 2 mouth organs, because I played a mouth organ too, so.
You played an organ too?
The harmonica.
Oh, the harmonica. Oh, and that, do you still play?
Well, I don't have one now. I wore out the 2 I had.
Oh.
But I still have a good corner accordion.
And so you're essentially self-taught or whatever, whoever.
By ear, yeah.
By ear.
Yeah. And we have the old tunes that they were being passed down from generation to generation, like the beginning of the square dance. I wrote up in the Dory. You know the song?
So is that like Irish music?
Yeah,
It is
Irish music. Oh, yeah, Irish music.
So did you learn any Gaelic then when you were growing up?
No, talking Gaelic. I never knew there was such a thing.
You never knew it was such a thing. And the square dances, they were just passed down from generation to generation?
And they'd get wilder as the night went on.
I bet, especially if they got a hold of that rum.
Yeah, but us was good like that. He'd give us the opportunity. Whereas if someone else came in, like Jerry Barker was on, usually you'd get Jerry Barker from Open Hall. You'd listen to his music, but you wouldn't get a chance to play.
So what foods did you eat? Like, I always hear like, my father used to love molasses, and I do not like molasses. Is that a big Newfoundland thing, or it was just his family?
There was no sugar.
There's no sugar.
Molasses came in from the southern Caribbean.
Yes, because the boats would be bringing down fish.
Fish and rum and molasses would be exchanging back and forth. We'd supply the fish,
And they would supply the rum
and the molasses. Yeah.
So,
And that was the staple thing then for sweetening.
Yeah.
do you like molasses?
Yes, I don't use
Lassie
molasses.
bread,
Yeah.
boy. We always
Lassie
ate lassie
bread?
Oh, you didn't say molasses. Lassie bread.
Oh, lasses from molasses. Okay.
Lassie
all right.
bread.
Lassie bread. Yeah,
Is that like gingerbread? Lassie bread? No.
No,
No, just regular bread, and you put that on for your
put molasses on the bread.
like like jam.
Like jelly. Oh.
Like jam.
Yeah, like peanut butter or something. Oh yeah, there was, and sweetened their tea with that.
Yeah.
You put that in your tea if you wanted sweetened tea.
And you bought that in kegs.
Yeah, kegs.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, you went to the store and bought a keg of molasses. Well,
So-
that was a
Yes, there's a story told that this comes from our own family now. My grandfather, John Devereux, was a merchant, a small merchant who sold for John Quinton in Redcliffe. But he would have supplies of kerosene oil for the lamps and molasses. And he had that stored in his shed down on the beach. Big shed down there, and an ice shed attached to it. And someone one winter drilled up through the planching in the shed, up through the puncheon tub of molasses, and drew off enough that they noticed it anyhow, and then plugged it again. And I don't know, did they notice it? So they tried to move the puncheon.
there was no weight to the puncheon.
There was no way. They couldn't move. They couldn't move it because the peg had gone up to the floor.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So what was breakfast like?
When I was growing up, we had roll oats. That was one thing that we could have.
Oatmeal.
The oatmeal, yeah.
I still eat oatmeal. I
But
love
there was
oatmeal.
no fruit.
I have that every morning.
Do you? Okay.
But there was no fruit.
No fruit.
No. There was plenty of bread, toasted bread. We toast bread. We didn't have a toaster, so you'd take the damper off the stove, the wood stove, and you'd hold a piece of bread over it.
But you had a metal screen, though. You had,
Yeah, I suppose we had one of them. Yeah. That you put the bread
it was
in.
a metal screen with a little hinge on it and a handle. You put your bread in there and you put it on the stove.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you toast your bread.
Yeah.
And then if you want to toast on two sides, you just turn it
No.
over.
And then put your molasses on it.
Oh, no, you didn't put molasses on the toast.
Oh, you didn't? Oh.
No, the molasses went on the
And I
regular
still
bread.
only can eat a toasted on one side.
Is that right?
I have a toaster. I don't know will I ever be able to replace it. That you turn down the sides on
Oh, the
Remember them
old
little
flip
kinds?
side toaster. My
and put
God,
it
that's
in,
an
and I
antique.
toast one side.
Ever see these? The two sides of the toaster drops down,
I've never seen one.
and you lay your bread on there, and you put the two covers up, so you're only getting toast on the
side.
One
inside.
Oh.
There. I haven't seen one of them in
I have
50
I
years.
have two. I have the one that I use and the one that I won't use.
I've got one that I've got to talk to it to get it to toast bread for me. One,
Oh.
what's the name of the
You'll
popular
never replace
Crocker?
Procter.
Gamble?
No, silence.
No. Crocker, Betty Crocker.
Betty
Oh,
Crocker.
Betty Crocker.
I finally got rid of my old toaster there about 6 months ago, and I bought this Betty Crocker one. My God,
Doesn't toast.
buttons on the side. You got to push this button for that and another one. Jeez.
Well, I have one in there that I got when we got married. That's 50 years ago. And still using it.
Oh, wow.
The element's still going in it.
And what was
They're
the name of the
heavy, see.
company?
And that's
The metal is
asbestos, I suppose, too. I don't know what it heats up with, what the element is made of. I don't know.
Oh, it'd be tungsten. But
Tungsten, okay.
usually there's an asbestos center in it.
Okay, well that's still there.
Yeah.
That's very healthy. But and then I was somewhere on the mainland there, myself and the family there, many years ago now, and at one of those sails, those that you have as you drive along the road. You'll see them all over the place on the mainland.
Garage sales?
Yeah.
Yard,
Oh, garage.
Large sails or.
yard
Tag
sales,
sales.
tag
Yeah.
sales, estate sales.
They had a brand new one there, so I bought that. I never used it because I can't eat toasted on both sides.
That's amazing. I can't eat toast unless it's toasted on both sides.
I never heard of toast on one side. Oh, that's a new one for
No,
me.
because all the toasters now automatically
And,
toast on both sides.
Speaking of going to the Caribbeans to bring back molasses, bringing down West Indian fish, right? Tom Aylward, this guy I was talking about, his father and his grandfather were ocean-going captains for Dan Ryan.
Oh, wow.
So they were smart men. They could read and write, that's for sure. They used to go down to the Caribbeans and they go across to Spain and Portugal.
Well, they must have had great stories to tell. He says, I'm not talking.
Never heard any of their stories, no.
Never heard any of this.
Well, I did hear a few, yes.
It's different with these people, these ocean-going captains. I mean, you had to watch yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, these stories you're getting from Tom Aylward, they were hard characters, you know. They're getting all kinds of. They were just working in different areas. But you're a sea captain.
Yeah.
You got a responsibility
That's
for
right.
a crew of men.
Especially if Dan Ryan didn't give you
drink. You got drinking. You lose your license.
That's right. And Dan Ryan didn't give you charge of a vessel if you weren't a capable person. You didn't get that's like Tom used to say. He didn't give my father a boat. He gave my grandfather and great grandfather, but not my father. So.
And so, what would lunch be like?
What was what?
Lunch be like? So you'd have one-sided toast for breakfast.
And oatmeal.
Lunch,
No,
well, lunch was the main
Bologna.
meal.
Bologna.
What?
Bologna.
Well, lunch was the main meal down home.
You mean bologna?
Bologna.
Okay.
No, it was the main meal down home.
The lunch was
1
the main
o'clock.
meal? Okay.
That was dinner.
That was dinner. Okay. So you'd have like potatoes and meat.
Well, it depends on the time of the year. This time of the year, you'd be pretty scarce on everything, really.
Did you grow your own food? Did you grow gardens?
Growed potatoes, cabbage, and
Turnip.
turnip.
And you'd have a root cellar to put it in?
Root cellar's still down there. My brother is doing it up. Started doing it up last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so after the 1 o'clock meal, you wouldn't eat for the rest of the day?
I'd have supper then.
Supper. The men, if they were around, like my grandfather, I'd be around him. About 3 o'clock, he'd come in and have a cup of tea. And he'd have that in the morning about 9 o'clock too. He'd have his breakfast 8 by 7.
Like a coffee break.
Yeah, they'd have a
break.
break like that. But a lot of salt stuff eaten. Salt fish, salt meat. Yeah, a lot of that.
But that was usually a supper meal. Rarely you eat that for dinner, except on Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
So what would the entertainment be? That would be learning to play music and going to the dances. And what else would be your
Well, at home in the Catholic community, cards would be okay.
So you play bridge, like bridge or whist?
No, it wouldn't be bridge.
Not a flavor. Usually auction,
Auction, yeah.
which is 120.
120, yeah.
Okay, I never heard of that.
And crib.
Crib,
And there was checkers. So I couldn't beat my father on checkers.
Okay.
He was good at it. So checkers. But that's about it. Say the day ended by 10 o'clock. Everybody was in bed.
Yeah, well, it was cold and dark.
And electricity was
You had
sometimes.
none. We had none.
No.
You had no electricity? Not even in the 60s?
No. Well, say I was gone in the 60s.
Yeah.
Say.
So in the 50s
I think
and
in
40s?
in the 40s and 50s. No, I think in '68 it came to Ontario.
Wow.
See, my life was completely different than his.
Well, you grew up with the ore, and so there's a lot of money.
The island was electrified back
company
in
had
1899.
In 1899?
When the mine opened up, the first thing they did, they put a submarine cable from Seal Cove across the bay to Mill Island. So we always had electricity. It was something we never even thought
No.
that other people didn't have.
Yeah. Well, you were lucky.
Oh, yeah, my life was completely different.
And
than
you had a
his.
hospital.
No.
No.
No hospital in St. John's or near Bell Island?
St. John's, there was 2 or 3 hospitals.
When did they open the hospital? Then?
Oh, that was after the mine closed down.
Go on.
Yeah. They finally
You
put
think
a
they'd have
hospital
re-
there after the
you
mine
think they'd have a
closed down.
one-day
Everyone was gone.
You think there'd be a one there in the mine?
Had a surgery there and a doctor.
No, we had no electricity, no indoor toilets, no.
You didn't have indoor toilets in 1940? So you had outhouses in the middle of the winter? Oh my goodness, that must have been hard.
Didn't know the difference.
We didn't know the difference. It was just.
That's the way it was.
That's the way it was. But I didn't see any outhouses when I was in Duntar. Now they must have knocked them all down. I said when I visited Dentara, last week, I didn't see any evidences of.
If you had to look where this guy Tom Aylward lived, that little house on the bank as you went down to the beach. His house there is a salt box house.
Right, the white salt
The
box.
white one. Behind that there's a house.
Is there?
And up by that 2 rooms,
Yeah.
there's an outhouse there.
Oh, is it? Did you see those?
I saw a small building.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, probably wouldn't be used anymore, obviously.
Well, that's all she has, this artist. That's all she has to use.
You're kidding.
Even today, she just uses it. Wow.
Oh, that's cold in the winter.
Yes, that is
She's only there until September, I think. I don't know, is she home? Is she out down there now? Catherine Boudreau or whatever her name?
On Ryan's Hill,
Huh?
on that.
No,
that-
the two galleries.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know. But I did see the
She lives
chimney
down.
was going because there was smoke coming out of it.
She lives down Hardy's old house. Jim Leo Hardy's old house. That's where she lives.
The blue house.
No, the big one there. That's big, with all the buildings around it. Did you notice that?
I noticed it was a really pretty big house. It was like what I would call a mansard house. It was like 3 stories. Is that the one in Keels? Or is that in
further up in the
Dentara?
garden.
I don't know.
I'd have to look at the video.
She, this artist from Toronto, I think it is. She bought that, but she never put any electricity to it or any plumbing into it or anything.
She just wanted to keep it as it originally was. Yeah.
Yeah, she's written a story about that. I think it's on the internet.
Yeah.
There's something about the history of that house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wrote something about it.
Yeah.
There's an article there. I think you
Yeah.
probably pointed that out to me.
Yeah, because that's Angela's, I keep on saying Angela Robinson's family. So she was lucky to get a little bit of history about her family. Yeah.